Welcome to B-Flow Sessions, the podcast where we help you find and stay in the flow on the water and in life. I'm your host, Brad Burton. Join me as I sit down with paddlers, athletes, and adventurers who are all seeking the flow. B-Flow Sessions is brought to you by our friends at Pucon Kayak Retreat. Are you dreaming of a Chilean whitewater escape this winter? Picture turquoise rapids, warm sunny days, and world-class rivers for every skill level, all based out of a riverside retreat built by paddlers for paddlers. If that sounds like your kind of winter, then Pucon Kayak Retreat is the place. To learn more or to book your dream kayak trip, reach out to me directly at bflowkayak@gmail.com and I'll help you get connected. Also, thanks to our partners who keep us in the flow: Dagger Kayaks, Stohlquist Waterwear, Sawyer Paddles, and Level 6 Gear. Welcome to the next episode of B-Flow Sessions. I'm the host, Brad Burton, and I'm joined tonight by one of my oldest friends in kayaking, probably one of the people I've spent the most time traveling and paddling with through the years. In my regard, one of the questions I ask people at the very end is their Mount Rushmore of kayakers. This person is on my personal Mount Rushmore of kayakers. I'll go ahead and get that out of the way and tell him. He probably knows that. I've told him that before. I think he's one of the best kayakers to ever live. Andrew Holcombe. Andrew, thanks so much for being here with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, so Andrew started paddling when he was like 7 years old, probably before that. He's kayaked all over the world, and he's a multi-time green race winner, was also silver medalist in freestyle kayaking, and has managed to stay in the sport and kind of evolve through the years. So again, Andrew, appreciate you being on B-Flow Sessions.
Yeah, of course.
And I really want to say thanks because, you know, some people like to promote themselves, and some people don't, or some people just like to have a conversation or things. This is a person with who's been in a sport and works in sales and been in a sport where self-promotion kind of helps. And Andrew doesn't believe in any self-promotion. As a matter of fact, has zero social media. So I take it as quite the honor that you would even come on, because I think the only other podcast you will even dare do is your wife. So this is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's a little bit true. I don't know that I'm anti self-promotion. I just don't do it very often, and yeah, I haven't been on social media in a good while. That I just stopped once and
never went back.
Never reopened it, and figured I didn't need it then. It gets in the way every once in a while.
You never really had to do much self-promotion because your kayaking took care of itself. And so, you know, so many people talk about their finding the flow moment beginning. Usually it's like a father or some sort of Boy Scout trip or something like that. Your situation's pretty unique. So tell us about finding the flow and what it was like growing up at the NOC.
Oh yeah, so I grew up much. So my grandparents are Payson and Aurelia Kennedy, and they were one of the two families that started the NOC. And then my parents met just before that, but you know I think my mom might be the longest running raft guide in the country. Maybe we're a little unsure, but she's been doing it a long time. So I grew up out there at the Nantahala, like in that community, and at the time that was, you know, pretty extraordinary. You know, the paddle sports and then the NOC were growing pretty rapidly, and they were definitely, I would say, near the forefront of you know, making things happen and doing stuff in paddle sports, whether it was rafting or kayaking. And so I grew up just in and around the water my whole life. I think my mom had me on a raft. It was like a super hot summer. The summer I was born in April, and it was just crushingly hot, I think. And she made it till the end of the summer, and then it just was too much. And so that fall, I went down the river in my car seat in a raft. So that was the first. That's the way the story goes. I've now learned that there are many stories of my life that sort of ebb and flow around the actual truth of what happened. But I do believe that I was on a river before I was a year old. And
Yeah.
so that's where I grew up. And so the river has always been a part of my life. It's definitely, I do believe in the flow state. Um, and that's, I, I don't know if I could ever come up with a first moment of feeling that, but it's definitely where I do get a hold of that concept the most, I would say.
And a lot of people talk about growing up on the river, or maybe they grew up in an area and on the weekends they were always going to the river, or um, things of this nature. But the Nantahala and the way the infrastructure around it, and because of the NOC, like people legitimately live on the river. And growing, when you say you grew up on the Nantahala, I mean, it is legitimately you grew up on the Nantahala. And then the NOC attracts these people from all over the world who are all world-class kayakers. So you were surrounded not only by your parents and your grandparents, but also these top-notch instructors and freestyle athletes and slalom athletes. When you were a kid, it wasn't called freestyle yet. But so talk about some of the flow guides and mentors that you had growing up there on the NOC.
Yeah, I think, like I said, definitely, so I started kayaking in like the late 80s. So I think you're right at 7. So 88 or 89. And for the first couple years, I kind of just, there were kids camps, and I think it was a way for me to, you're growing up, you're a little bit out there in the Nantahala, and so I think my parents did that so that I had some other kids to hang out with. There were other kids around, but it definitely it wasn't like, I think, growing up in a town or a city or something like that. And they were working all summer, so didn't really have time to like drive me places and stuff like that. And so they put me in the kids camps at the NOC when I started when I was 8. That was the youngest you were allowed to do that at the time. There's like an 8 to 10 year old. And so I just did those all summer for like 2 years. So I think I'd do like 3 or 4 a summer.
That's awesome.
However many there were, that was how many I did.
So they just
And
drop you off there on their way to work.
yeah, exactly. And
Wave to you as they
so
went down the river.
yeah, exactly. So I did that for the first 2 years, and then I was like 9 or 10. I started being like, this is something that I enjoy doing, and really do want to do. And at that point, it was crazy, like because of the way it was structured. Like the rule was I just couldn't go by myself.
Mm,
For at least for a little bit. That changed starting about 12. I would get off the bus, and as long as it wasn't the dead of winter, all my gear was down there, and I would attain up to the falls and do enders, and they were okay with me doing that because there were
okay.
other people kind of around and up there, but not until I was
Right.
like 12, 13, 14, like something like that. Yeah, but before that, I just couldn't go by myself. That was the rule. I had to
Yeah.
go with another adult or a friend or something like that. And so I just started trying to find people that would go paddling with me. And some of them were my mom's friends. There's Corey Keiss is one, and then Doug Dotchershea. Those guys, Jesus, man, I don't see them very often anymore, but I owe them. I mean, I am not their child, and I spent so much time with them, like in the car and on the river, and I was getting after it, but I was still like a 9-year-old kid or a 10-year-old kid. That's probably
Right.
not necessarily plan A for them, so I owe them a lot. And then got a little older, and started meeting other folks. Hugh Kelly was a big influence,
Mm,
and then Brian Jennings. He was really the person that I first started, like this was a little bit later, like you know before I could drive, but I'd gotten good enough where I was wanting to run stuff. And he was the person that I did most of the first time I did like West Prong and the Green, and Brian was around on a lot of that, as well as my
very cool.
dad, obviously.
Sure.
And then Shane Benedict, I met Shane while he was still teaching there, and then
Okay.
he was my coach in freestyle for a long time, and
Hmm.
so there's it kind of goes. Tommy DeQueer, like, used to, same thing, would pick me up and take me paddling or drive me to freestyle events or events once and I was like starting to compete, in the 14, 15-year-old range, but couldn't get places yet. And, my parents weren't really into that side of paddling. So I was kind of
Right.
just figuring out how to make it work. But yeah, there's a fairly endless list of people, but those are a few. Philip Curry as well.
Mm.
Spent some time paddling with him, and same thing. Big Shane Williams. Actually,
Yep.
he and Brian Jennings were very kind to me. They would definitely like just call. I mean, they would call me. It was awesome looking back on it now. But they'd be like, hey, we're going to the
Right.
Ocoee, or we're going to go run this, or we're going to take this weekend trip, and I've just it's like
It,
total long behind them. So
it's so funny you mentioned those names, because I came to this center in '97, so a few years after you're now probably 15, 16, 17 years old whenever I got there, and I'm just a couple years older than you. But those same guys were some of the first to take me down the green, along with John Miller. And when I interviewed Pete Gallo, he said the same thing.
yeah,
Shane Williams, John Miller, Brian Jennings. Those guys were just so welcoming to everybody. And as long as you could paddle,
yeah.
and they were going to help you take your paddle into the next level. But, you had to, like, I remember John Miller, me asking, like, when am I ready for the green? He's like, I'll tell you. And
That's
then one day
awesome.
he's like, okay, you ready to go to the green? I'm like, I don't know. Am I? He's like, yes, let's go.
Yeah, that's fun.
Speaking of Tom DeQueer, what age were you filming when you guys were filming Johnny Utah?
Oh man, yeah. 14, 15, I think, something like
Okay.
that. Yeah, not older than 15, maybe 14. Same
So
thing.
for
I
people
couldn't drive. Like,
right,
that's when my dad had to bring me to all that stuff. That's not. I mean, there was a story they were doing there as well, but like, yeah. So yeah, 14, 15, something like that.
okay. So for people who don't know, The Adventures of Johnny Utah was a mid '90s kayaking video, early '90s, and really did an incredible job of like telling the story of paddling and the Green River. Had kind of a weird side story that went with it, with like some guy in a mental hospital.
Yeah.
But it was kind of groundbreaking stuff at the time, and especially in an era where all the kayak videos were just like drop waterfalls and like have loud music playing. I felt like it definitely, kind of transcended things.
Yeah, that was, I just remember being, again, I was just excited to be able to go kayaking. I don't know that fully registered with me that was a video. I mean, it
I
did. I knew people were filming, but I was just pumped to
right,
get to go.
get to go with all those cool people. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. But then let's just stick with the green. Fast forward however many years later, it becomes a pretty big part of your life, a river you run on the regular, and then start racing it, and then had an opportunity to win that race twice. And it's not like, even though hey, live in Asheville now, you run it a lot. That's not like, oh, I ran, the Elkhorn, which is in some people's backyard, and maybe they get good at that and they win that. I mean, when you win the green race, you're talking about one of the hardest extreme races that's out there, and a race that brings the top paddlers from all around the world to try to win, to try to compete and win that. And you've, been right there amongst the best of them, and won it twice. Talk about that.
Um, yeah, I didn't really get involved with the green race until it had kind of, I'd say, was well on its way to like already taken off, which is,
Right.
I grew up around here. A lot of people don't realize that, but I didn't do it until I think 2004, maybe 4 or 5, something like that, when I moved back to Asheville, actually,
Oh, wow.
after school. And so I was not around when it was starting, which I really regret that. I don't have very many regrets. That would have been fun to be there at some of those beginning ones, but it just wasn't. Yeah, I don't know. It wasn't something that I was super focused on. But then, yeah, moving back, you like pretty quickly realize like how big of a deal and how much fun it is.
Hmm.
Particularly if you, I mean, I think it's fun for anybody, but it's really fun if you live here.
Right.
You know, it's very different now, like after Helene, but you know, all those years, like there's an entire month where like the entire kayaking community in Western North Carolina and almost the Southeast is singularly focused on that event to a certain degree. And
Hmm.
it's just really cool. Like it was always a neat atmosphere. You know, the training was almost more fun than the race. Like, you know, and yeah, I'm fortunate to have done well in it a number of times, and that's like a whole nother thing, and was super amazing. And you know, was there, you know, kind of when I started, it was mostly people that were still just, you know, mostly people in the States and mostly people from the Southeast. There's just a lot of really good paddlers here. So it's a huge
Yeah.
race.
Right.
And then it, you know, in the next, like, you know, by the mid 2000s and 2010, that thing had like exploded to where there's
Yeah.
like almost 200 racers and, you know, people from all over the world. And like, it was super cool. Grace and those guys have always done a really good job of keeping, you know, it's never very expensive to enter, you know, there's never, it
Hmm.
wasn't about prize money or anything like that. Like it was just like a race.
Right.
And then there were all these crazy races within the race of people that have been doing it a long time. And like, I mean, it was really fun. And then the day of I mean, the race itself is extraordinary, or what, you know, was like,
Right.
I've always said like, that's the closest I think kayaking ever gets like as an athlete to like the feeling that I've never done this, but what it must feel like to like walk out of a tunnel at like a really
Hmm.
big game and all the
Yeah. Yeah.
fans are like right over top of you and like, you know, the just the electric atmosphere of that. I think the green race is the closest that I've ever done because people are literally like right there at the
Yeah.
biggest rapid. I mean, they can touch you. Like,
Right.
you know, it's crazy. Like, just some wild things happen in that gorilla area and go left where people are these really intense places, but people are super close to you and just, you know, everybody's fired up and everybody's cheering for everybody. It's pretty awesome. Um,
And what don't they like? Obviously, the rapids have their names, but that whole area through there with the way the gorge goes and the people line up, do they call that the amphitheater? What do they call that? Like
I don't know. Yeah,
you're
that would.
entering. I think I've heard it referred to
Yeah,
that
yeah,
like you're entering the amphitheater because it literally looks like it because there's people just on both
yeah,
shores. You know, and like you said, it feels like you're coming out of a tunnel or entering into
yeah.
on stage. You know, and they're to go perform. And yeah, one of the things I found unique is it didn't matter where you're from, who you were, everybody was super stoked and supporting you and cheering you on. And yeah, it's a really special, uh, unique thing. By the time people get to hear this podcast, it'll be after the green race. But what is the status of it? I know they were worried about water flow.
Yeah, so you know, they're doing it again, which is great. I think that will be really awesome for a lot of people here,
Hmm.
for all the reasons that I just talked about. That was a pretty significant community event.
Right.
And so I think that's great. And the latest I've heard is it'll be one of the Saturdays in November as soon as there's water. They're supposed to
Okay.
look at it every Monday and then try to, you know, like let people know. And
You
then
plan on racing?
I'm not. I'm actually out of town the
Okay.
the November 1st, which is the first Saturday, and then have some work stuff the next ones. But it'll be all right if it. You know, you got to miss them every now and then.
Yep.
And like I said, I've been fortunate to have won that thing, and so it's all right that I'll miss it.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll be back at some point. The next segment is perfect flow. Tell me about some times when everything was just perfect on the river. I know there's probably, just countless, but maybe one or two that comes to mind.
Um, Yeah, I mean, like semi recently, I had a really good took a trip to California again about 3 years ago. I hadn't been there in a long time. And just yeah, basically bought a plane ticket. Didn't have a huge plan, and just kind of went out there. I mean, I know a lot of people, so it wasn't super
Sure.
stressful. Um, and on that trip, I had a really good day on the East Kaluuya,
Okay.
down south there at South Southern Sierras. That one was pretty magical. There's some real big rapids on that thing, and just yeah, I didn't walk, I ran everything. And so, including a couple that in there, it just like was one of those days where it just worked. Like any line that I was seeing, like pretty much came to fruition, and it was
Mhm.
great. And then on that same trip, actually paddling with Jason Hale and Ben Stooksbury, we did Devil's Post Pile. Um,
Okay.
the three of us of the San Joaquin there. And the day one of that was actually technically it's day two because we, um, hiked in and ran a couple rapids and then camped. But the second day that was an amazing day of kayaking.
Wow.
Um,
You
yeah,
know, and Andrew, you're one of my favorite people that I've ever paddled with. Can I tell you what the problem with kayaking with you though?
sure.
I mean, this is a really problem when you paddle with Andrew Holcombe. If he walks a rapid, then it makes it really easy your decision. You know you're walking it. But if you're trying to decide whether or not to run it, and Andrew runs it and he aces it, you still have no clue whether or not you can do it or not.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's
So,
probably a
so
little less so now than in my
but hearing you
heyday.
say like, oh, I didn't portage any of these rapids. I'm like, he was considering portage. I'm like,
Yeah, no, I mean
it is.
there's some big ones on that one. Like
I'm sure.
there were a couple that only I ran. Um, and it was one of those days where it just was kind of feeling good, and um, yeah, I was ready to kind of look at stuff a little bit differently, and stick it out there a little bit more.
Yeah, like I said, there you go. There's my point. If just because Andrew can run it doesn't
Yeah,
mean that.
Let's eddy out and take a quick break. Do you need a break from the cold of a North American winter? Then let's head south to the best whitewater on earth at Pucon Kayak Retreat. Email me at bflowkayak@gmail.com to learn more about how you can take the ultimate paddling adventure in the heart of Chile. Now let's peel out and head downstream.
So, what about sometimes when things didn't go so well in the river? I call this segment flood. This could be something on the river, or maybe just in your personal life, or anything that you'd like to share that just when things weren't going well for you.
yeah. There's a few,
Hmm.
both river and not. I've had my fair share of like spending nights out or hiking out in the dark. We did an effort on this creek called Upper Creek. Um, this was this was a long time ago. But I'm not, I don't know if I think people had run parts of that before, but I don't know. We sort of just went for it. And it was one of those things where it just started kind of cascading pretty early, but you're like, whatever, it always works out. Um, so we put on pretty late. Well, we were trying to go somewhere else. There's two eyes. We go there and we put on late. Nobody knows where we're going. You go down through there and it's getting late. So we start, picking up pace and not scouting as much. Um, and I will never forget this. I like rolled over this slide, which was awesome, that I think somebody had just told me like left. And, I spent the bottom third of that slide in the air. It's a huge kicker. It was amazing. Land in the eddy, and there's people. We had a huge group too, which was part of it. And we kind of got there. Were a couple of us. It was like Toby, or it was like Pat, then me, then Toby, at some order like that. And we kind of just went, and because somebody was out scouting, and we were like, oh, they must think it's good, and so we're going down this little channel, and then all of a sudden they're like, not good. And like I catch an eddy and then Pat catches something and then there's just nowhere left for Toby to go. So the last vision of him is just rolling over this massive horizon line, like in the twilight. And he made it. I don't. That rapid was heinous. It was like this really twisting thing with a big tree at the bottom, and he didn't even swim. But like we didn't see him for like 10 minutes, probably 5-10 minutes, because we had to like get out, scramble through the thing, and like find him down there. And it was like almost dark by that point, and he's like,
Oh my gosh.
anyway. So that was a fail. And then we got split because we couldn't figure out how to connect, and he was on his own, and we tried hiking out one side and got cliffed out and made it to the other one, and we got out of there at like 12:30. It's like 19 degrees. It's up near Boone.
Okay, I was going to ask where this was. Okay.
Yeah, it's up near Boone. It's off of 181, I think.
Wow.
Yeah, people have gone back in and run it since. I think it's really great. That was just a fail on. Yeah, we just didn't do that one very well. So that's definitely flooding. And then, yeah, I don't know, life-wise. Yeah, I mean, there's been a couple of times, like where it just, it doesn't work for whatever reason. And it I don't know, man. It like you just do the next right thing. It's the same as on the river. Like,
I
there's
love that.
pretty
Yeah.
endless amounts of times in my life where it's like not how you pictured it. And I mean, it sucks like it's when that's happening, but you do just have to kind of try to do the next best thing.
Yeah. And coaching, we tell our kids, I coach basketball still, and we tell them NBA, which is like the National Basketball Association, but next best action.
Yeah, right.
Like,
Yeah.
you can't help that you turned that ball over. You
Yeah,
can't help that you screwed up and made your wife mad, or you
that's
missed that
right.
Eddie.
Yeah.
Next best action.
Yeah.
And, yeah, next correct right thing. I like that. When are some times that you've been out of paddling? You've been in low flow, maybe for an injury or anything. I know you haven't chosen to be out, kind of like I did, but I know you've dealt with a few injuries.
Yeah, I've actually been relatively fortunate. I'm going on 30, upper 30 years of paddling and haven't really had many injuries. The biggest one I've had is I herniated 2 discs in my back when I was late 20s. So that took me out for pretty much 6 months period, like no paddling at all for 6 months. And then like 8 to 10 of like light paddling, like not very often, and class 2, 3. And then it took me a little more than a year to get back to running like legit class 5. And, like that has stayed with me a little bit. Like my days of setting waterfall records are over, and I try to avoid landing really hard. I judge seal launches really differently now. I don't do that unless I have to.
Yeah.
There's no more, oh, that looks like a fun seal launch for me, I'm gonna go just do that. If I don't have to seal launch, I don't do it. Yeah, I mean, I'll run some stuff where I'll do a bounce, but yeah, I try to pay a little more attention to that. So that's been the biggest one. And then teaching school, like I definitely had a ebb there. I wasn't like out of, particularly as an administrator, my time just kind of evaporated. I did all right, but that was definitely I wasn't paddling nearly as much as I have in other time periods of my life or I am now.
Right. Well, speaking of now, the next segment's the current. Tell us about what you do now with kayaking and your work as a sales rep.
Yeah. So what I do now with kayaking is try to make decisions. It's all relative. Everybody's a little bit different, but I am challenging myself to make decisions that will result in me kayaking when I'm 80.
Okay.
And so I have a long-term goal to kind of stay in it at a pretty high level. So, I do, pay a little more attention to like fitness and what I'm eating and stuff like that. And yeah, I make some different decisions on the river now than I did probably when I was 20. And just trying to pay a little more attention to, yeah, having my system hold up a little bit, and to be able to do that. So that's good, and I definitely still have a lot of goals. Like I actually just did the Stikine. That was the first time I ever got up there. I did that in August. That was a pretty big paddling goal and was pretty special to make that happen. I had a really great group and just phenomenal trip. And I got a few more of those that I'd like to kind of make happen. But yeah, for the most part, I'm just trying to make sure it's fun, and that whatever I'm doing it because I want to. So that's where I'm at paddling. And then, yeah, now I work as a sales rep for the Southeast. Got a bunch of different paddle sports brands and a few not. So I get to, work with a bunch of cool shops and that kind of thing. Yeah, it's great.
What are some of your brands?
So I work with a guy named Spencer Cook. He is my boss, and we have Jackson Kayaks, Werner Paddles, Astral Designs, Immersion Research. Yeah, those are the Badfish, stand-up boards, Eagle Creek. Those are our primary ones. Probably Eddie Line Kayaks.
Okay, very cool.
Yeah.
The next segment, flow advice. Now, I want you to think about advice that you would give to two different groups of people here. One would be somebody entering the sport, starting kayaking, regardless of age. Another, an older person who may have been away from the sport, who's now trying to get back into it, but used to paddle.
Both of those?
Yeah, it could be the same advice for those two people, or it could be different.
No, I think it's probably different. So for people who are interested in getting into paddling, I really recommend taking some instruction. It doesn't have to be a ton, but just get a solid base. That's almost like anything. You can self-taught. I've definitely self-taught myself plenty of things, but if you really think you're fired up on it, taking the time to take a class is I think really well worth it, particularly for just learning a couple of things about forward stroke and your roll. If you get some instruction on those two things, I think that'll really help you out. And they're going to get you pointed, and most instruction programs are going to do a really good job of get you pointed in the right direction with boats and stuff like that, so you don't end up with something that you found from someone who said it was going to be really good for you, and then a little bit later you recognize that you were thinking you're just paddling flat water, and you thought you had a recreational kayak, and then all of a sudden you learn that you have this weird playboat from the 1990s that somebody stole you. And I've run into folks that are like that, and they're like, man, this kayaking thing is super hard. I'm like, well, what boat do you have? And they're literally paddling flat water, and they're like, oh man, I got this thing called a Fury. And you're like, oh, well, that's probably why that is not super fun for you right now. Yeah. And so regardless of what type of kayaking you're going to do, just, a day, or there's some really cool, if you're looking to get into whitewater, there's some really great schools who do like week-long programs that are super fun. Those are all over the place, and they're going to do a great job of just setting a foundation for you and getting you pointed in the right direction. And then for people looking to get back in, it's changed. And I would say, like, embrace these new kayaks. Whatever boat you thought was awesome a long time ago probably still is, but I would say just let it go and like get something with a ton of rocker and call it good. It's gonna be awesome. Like they really, boat designs, I guess, look maybe sort of similar, but they have really come a long way in the last like 10 years, and they're safer, they're more fun, they're more comfortable. And so just do it, and don't hold on to the thing that you remember being good.
That's so funny, because Andrew has given this exact advice to me like countless times over the last 2 years, as I've like tiptoed back. Hey, Andrew, I'm thinking about kayaking again.
and then I'll go kayaking once, and then just life. Not like I've chosen not to. It's just, and now I was like, hey, I found an old GTX that I
Yeah,
can
yeah,
get for like 200 bucks.
I told
And
you not to buy that.
he's like, yeah, take $500 more and buy a used rewind, and you'll be so much more happy. And he was right. So
Yeah.
I agree with Andrew. Get a new boat with some bow rocker.
At least to
I'll
start.
be
And
out there.
then once you like get back into it and you get your feet back under you a little bit, then you can start panning out and paddling some of the older boats, some of the littler boats. But yeah, just bite that bullet and get something reasonably new, and you'll be
Yeah,
a lot more stoked.
I agree. Um, well, I want to, before we run the rapids, that's our rapid fire Mount Rushmore segment. I want to tell a couple stories on Andrew. Um, I'm not going to mention the person, we don't want to ever, embarrass somebody who was maybe in a sticky situation. But this just kind of sums up the type of paddler Andrew is. We were on the Tallulah, and one of our friends got caught in a hole below Bridalveil, pretty sticky. And I attempted to rescue the person,
Oh no,
and,
it's
and
at the very bottom. It's at the last rapid.
oh, okay,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, but it's a
It's at the
slide, so that's not
dam.
Bridalveil. Yeah, okay, yeah,
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 it's at the
that's it.
little powerhouse. It's like the fake ledge down
That's
there
what
that
it
has a
was.
gnarly hole.
Yeah, it's a gnarly hole. Yeah, okay. So and it's been 20 plus years since I've been there, so memory's faded. But yeah, I mean, pour over type hole, gnarly. This person's caught in it and try to get the person out. Andrew goes in there, gets this person out, like literally, like almost like shoving them, but loses his paddle and has to hand surf his way out of this hole that most people, have a hard time getting out of with a paddle, and made it look easy.
Yeah, I don't know what was that. I don't really know what that decision making was. I do remember that. That's probably
Well,
not really what you ought to do. It did work out, but there was a lot wrong with that decision.
yeah, I mean, we probably should have got out and thrown a rope. It probably would have been the easiest thing to do.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I
but
think it was. It's that hole is pretty bad. I mean,
it is.
even
It's like
today,
a little
like
dam.
yeah, even today, like that thing will get you. And I think that was my. I don't think I really thought about it. That they were just getting pounded in that thing like
Pounded.
super
Yeah.
bad, and weren't even getting time to like stabilize. It was like window shade or cartwheeling, and so I think I just acted. But yeah,
And I remember that person was a good paddler and
Oh yeah,
certainly had their time swimming, but this person would refuse to swim. Like
yeah.
I
They
remember
eventually swam out of that, but I think I just acted and like it worked out. But generally, it's not. I wouldn't say that's. I don't even know if I would do that now.
that's not in the Whitewater guidebook
No, it's not.
recommendation
Yeah,
there. But sometimes you just got to do next best action.
I
But
guess. Yeah.
a lot of good times on the water and off. The house that I lived in for a while was like two houses down from where Andrew grew up, and that was at the takeout of the takeout of the Cascades and the put in of the regular. So lots of days of getting
Yeah.
laps in on the Cascades and just paddling to our house afterwards. All right, so you ready to run the rapids?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is your Mount Rushmore segment. Putting you on the spot. If you want to hit pass on any of them, you can. Um, so I throw out a category, and you give me your top 3 to 5 from these categories about paddling. Kayak designs of all time. Your favorite.
The RPM, the green boat, and I'm gonna go with just those two.
Okay.
I think those.
Rivers
Actually,
of all
no,
time.
sorry. The
Go ahead.
the Fury, not
Okay.
the design. The planing hull that like
Yeah. The concept.
yeah, I didn't
Yeah.
particularly care for that boat, but that was the first one that like initiated that, and that changed paddling.
Yeah, for sure. Rivers of all time.
Stikine, Grand Canyon, and the Linville.
Awesome. Play spots, or it could be an individual rapid.
That's all right. Minibus, New River Drives, That's a good question. I'm gonna go with those two.
Okay. Countries to paddle in.
Countries to paddle, like whole countries.
Yeah, you get the whole country.
Oh dang. Canada,
Yeah.
the States. A lot of options there.
Yeah. Covers a lot of
Uh,
area.
and Chile.
Love it. A river you've never done that you want to get on.
Middle Kings.
Kayakers of all time. Your Mount Rushmore.
Like people that are still paddling or people that have quit or like all of it.
Could be anything, whatever you think.
Okay.
If the kayaking world was doing a Mount Rushmore, whose four faces would be up there?
I don't know if I'll get four. There's a lot of people. Dane. Mark Lyle. Oh, there's so many names. I don't even know where to go. There's like Roxanne.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Whitney. Like that. I don't know. There's so many places you could go with
Awesome.
that for so many reasons.
I got to paddle with Whitney like 2 weeks ago in the Ecoe. It
Yeah.
was so much fun.
Some of those are just pivotal in my own life.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, like I said, you would be on my Mount Rushmore, and I think you make an argument that you are one of the top paddlers of all time, but you're on my Mount Rushmore just from the influence you had on me in paddling. So, yeah, I think that shapes our opinion for sure. All right. So I know you didn't like this question. I sent the questionnaire, and you're like, weird question, but I hopefully it makes people think a little bit. Not to be like morbid or think about the end or whatever, but if the river gods were to come down and they said, "Look, you got one more day on the water ever, but you get to be any age you want to be, and you get to be on any river in any boat and with any crew." I know I said 3 to 5, but you could pick whoever you want. So where are you going? What boat are you in, and who's in your crew? Final
Yeah,
flow.
is that like the last day you're ever gonna paddle, or you're like the last day on Earth, like you're gonna die?
Well, I,
Those are two
I
different
mean,
things.
well, yeah. I mean,
I'm not
it would be
bothered by
nice.
either way, but I just,
It would be
the
nice to be
answer is
like,
going to be different regarding, like
yeah,
depending on which one of those it is.
right. No, this is your last day ever in a kayak. I'm
Ever.
not. I'm not. I'm not knocking you off the earth. I'm just
Okay, so
saying,
just like
if you only could paddle
no more
one more
paddling.
time, if you could only paddle one more time, what river would you go to? What boat would you be in, and who would be in your crew?
I don't like. Man, if you really got one more day, like, screw. I mean, whatever you haven't done is fine. Like
Okay.
hopefully I've made good decisions. So I'm not very like the river and the boat and the age are not important to me
Yeah.
really. There's definitely places that I love and boat designs that have been better than others. But if I really had one more day, I'm not really sure that I would care too much about that. I'd probably try to, find a bunch of people and I guess just do it.
Just have fun.
Yeah. I don't even, yeah. I mean, there's many people that all the people I just talked about, a bunch of my
Right.
family, like I'm pretty fortunate. I got a lot of family that paddle and including my wife. So you'd think you'd want to do it there. And
I would hope she'd be in your crew. Yeah.
I think I'd be a little more focused on people than the rest of that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. The people are kind of what I mean. The rivers, it's kind of twofold, right? The rivers, the adventure, the scenery, the sport itself, but the people really make it so unique. And that's what I found is, I mean, I found it then, but now getting back into the sport, seeing old friends like you and people just that have been so gracious and welcoming and act like it was still 20 years ago in a way, but also now grown up.
Yeah.
So it's the people are amazing in the sport. So yeah, it's awesome. All right. Well,
Cool.
anything else you would want to share about the flow?
I mean, I feel good. I mean, it's fun. Flow state is fun.
It is. It
It's
is
worth
fun.
trying to get a hold of that from time to time in one's life.
Yeah,
Doesn't have to be super scary or super difficult. You can still get there without those things.
that's right. Well, Andrew, thanks for coming on B-Flow Sessions. It's been just an honor to get to talk to you and great to see you again. And I want, hopefully, the next time we see each other, we have spray skirts on.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, buddy.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of B-Flow Sessions, where we explore how paddlers find their flow on the water and in life. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow the show, leave a rating, or share it with a friend. It truly helps us grow the community. And a huge thank you to Pucon Kayak Retreat for sponsoring today's episode. If you're ready for a world-class Chilean whitewater adventure, email me at bflowkayak@gmail.com and I'll help you get dialed in. Until next time, keep finding your flow.